Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on our 10,000 subscriber celebration of our YouTube channel. My name is Nico Luro. As you can see in the little name title down below, I am one of the content contributors for GUE's YouTube channel. And I am really happy today to be joined by the GUE president, Jarrod Jablonski, and one of the channel's favorite contributors, and GUE vice president, Dorota Czerny. I will bring them on in just a moment. I'm just going to explain how the live stream works quickly. So as a lot of you have seen from socials, we are going to be giving prizes away throughout the course of this stream. All we need you guys to do is comment, as I can see you're already doing. If there's a question that gets asked, we will address all the questions that get asked on the right if they're pertinent to GUE. If you do ask a question, you'll be put into a random prize draw, and then we'll contact you, whether it be on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you've messaged us. We'll get in contact with you directly, and you'll be one of 10 lucky people who are drawn to win one of our prizes. In just a moment in the comment section, I'm also going to be dropping a link, which is only going to be valid for the first 50 people. This will be a link for everyone to click on where you can win a ticket to Scuba Digital, completely free, sponsored by our friends over at Scuba Digital. So be on the lookout for that link in just a moment. That's enough for me. I would like to now bring on the two people who you're all here to see. Jarrod and Dorota, welcome to the stream.
Thanks very much. Hey, everybody. Thanks, Nico. And thanks very much to all of you for tuning in, and especially for all your general support, helping us reach our 10,000 milestone. Nico's done a great job helping organize content, and thanks so much to Dorota as well for her contributions, and especially for you watching and liking. Thanks very much.
It's been really great, guys. We can't thank you enough for continuing to like, share, and comment. We did, as I mentioned at the top of the show, put a sort of open invitation out on the channel a few days ago, and we have got quite a few of you who have sent questions in. What I'll do is I'll not only read out the questions and then give the floor to Jarrod and Dorota to answer, I'll also drop the question in the chat just for the people who aren't native English speakers. Then you'll be able to follow along maybe a bit more easily. So, Jarrod, I believe this first question is directed at you. So for Jarrod Jablonski, GUE divers must use Halcyon and Santi gear. Is that true or false? Or would you maybe elaborate on that?
Yes, I'd be happy to elaborate. So this has actually been a bit of an important point since the very inception of GUE, something that many people have misunderstood many different times, but it's always good to reiterate. We took great care to ensure that all of the standards were written in a very specific way that did not preference any type of specific brand of equipment, but called out the specific attributes that we want, or the specific important aspects of all the various types of equipment that we were looking to promote. So there are no brand required. You can use any brands as long as it matches the type of descriptions that we're looking for, which include things, for example, like a continuous weave harness. So those are the sorts of things we're looking for, and not a particular brand. But good question, and a common one.
Dorota, anything for you to add on that, or are we happy to move on to the next one? Happy to move on. So, Dorota, this next one is for you. Where should I wear my weight belt on my diving rig?
So this is kind of a quite complicated question, but it's as well one of the most, I would say, kind of difficult questions to answer. But people who know me, they know that I have one very favorite answer that answers everything. And I would say it depends. Because it really depends on what, where are you diving, what gear you are having. And the question was concerning where do I wear my weight, not necessarily weight belt, because many divers, they would opt not to wear a weight belt because they dislike weight belts, because they think they promote lower back pain and they're uncomfortable to wear. And very often people are wearing weights in places that are a little bit hidden, I would say. So they would have it on the back plate, they would have it between the tanks on a twin set, they will have a tail weight which hangs on the bottom of the twin sets from the lower band. And this weight is not accessible. And very often the mistake is being done that people remove the weight belt, move the weight somewhere where it's not accessible, meaning not ditchable. And the problem appears that if there would be a need of dropping some weight, it's impossible. So to answer where should I wear, my weight on my equipment, I would say it depends if your rig or if your equipment configuration is, as we call it, balanced, which means that you would be able to swim it up in a case of a wing failure with potentially dropping a little bit of that weight. So this is one part of the answer. And the other part of an answer could be a whole lecture on how I can distribute my weight to promote or help me a little bit with my trim. But here as well is a very big misconception, because people think that if I shift my weight around, it will fix my trim. But to be honest, 80% or even more than that, 90% of the trim case is your body tension and how you as a person get there. So I cannot answer exactly where it should be. I can tell that some of it should be ditchable, so it should be able to remove. And some of this weight you can move around depending on if you want to help yourself a little bit with getting to a proper trim. But even in that case, the majority of work is you as a diver and your body and how you position it yourself. So that was my not very straight, it depends answer.
But it was good.
All depends answers are like this.
I love that. It's guys, if you've been on the channel a while, you know that's a very Dorota answer. That's why we love her. Guys, Jarrod and Dorota, as was expected, we've had a few questions come in live from the people who are watching us now. So let me just pop a few up here. Awesome says, what do you think about the plastic and all sorts of trash in our waters? And what are the responsibilities of our global diver community?
Well, I mean, I think many of us are staying awake at night on that one. It's pretty tremendous, and just the plastic that we can see is already massively troubling. But all of the plastic, the microplastics that we can't see very well at all, and I've spoken to quite a number of leading researchers who are telling me the problem's much worse than we appreciate, clogging up digestive tracts of every sort of species. I mean, I think it really risks a tremendous tipping point. Where we're really going to have trouble just maintaining any kind of health of the quality of our oceans, all the way from microplastics on up. So, I mean, I think we all need to do what we can. It's a difficult world to avoid plastic. I know that we are, any of the companies I'm associated with, and GE in particular, is working really hard to eliminate plastic. It crops up constantly everywhere, no matter how hard you try. You know, people just ship you things in plastic, even when you ask not to happen. But we can become demanding consumers. We can write to companies. We can try to avoid it in every scenario that we can. We can carry our own bags, avoid getting plastic bags at the grocery store. I've been carrying my own bags for years, including for produce. You can get your own bags for that as well. It's a bit of a hassle at first, but when you get used to it, you actually end up, I think, preferring it because it ends up being cleaner and easier and more convenient. So all the little things along the way, but in particular, letting your voice be known and letting companies know you care, I think would be big factors. Dorota, please.
Yeah, and I really want to add, because this, you know, I do it on every day. I mean, I'm trying not to get any plastic, and I'm refusing plastic. If I go to a coffee shop, I say, I do not want to have this plastic thing. Just give it the coffee in my glass cup that I bring with. And I actively refuse to, I do not buy bottled drinking water since 2 years. Because I said I will not drink anything that is in plastic, and I just refuse to do that. And the other thing is, I believe that many people think, you know, it's not my problem if I drink, you know, one plastic bottle of water per day. I mean, it's only one, but if you combine all of the people together, it's a lot of plastic. And I think even if you believe that I can't change, I believe you can. Because if we personally, every single person does something, we can change things. Because otherwise, who can change? I mean, nobody will change it for us. So it's the consumer, like Jarrod said, it's the consumers that will force people not to give us plastic anymore. And I see changes already, but well, it's a long battle, but you know, every single person personally needs to get engaged from my perspective.
Yeah. I'd also like to take this opportunity to just do a little shameless plug for the YouTube channel. We do put conservation videos up now and then, and we have put one up recently, which is encouraging everyone to get involved with the local beach cleanup on June 5th and 6th. That is on the channel right now. And if you know, whether you're part of the GUE community or not is irrelevant. If you are close to a body of water, why not get involved? The power starts with you. We've had a few others come in. Kevin Esmeyer has said, what is the best way to get started with GUE? I saw Dorota's video about dive computers. It has me very interested.
So probably, of course, it depends. But thank you for liking the video. And I mean, the best way to start depends. You know, if you are a certified diver, then there are two ways. I mean, there are even more ways. But the flagship course that we have is GUI fundamentals that can be done in single tank, and of course with GUI equipment configuration or with a twin set. So this would be one course which normally people would take, and Nico took it, for instance, as a start as well. So he did it in a single tank, in a rash guard, in a very tropical water. Because this course introduces everything, what you should know, what the differences really are. So it's not a course that will enhance your, or they will exceed your depth, or it will teach you kind of magic tricks that GUI divers know. Though there are a few, but you will just get introduced to the concept, which for me is the most important part, so that you will learn not only about the equipment configuration, but as well about why we do things in a certain way, which for me is one of the most important aspects of our training, that we answer those questions, why we do things in a certain way. So fundamentals for sure. And then there are other courses that maybe some people don't even know that you can do not being a GUI diver, which is a drysuit primer or a double primer, or Rec 1, but you know, for certified divers, it doesn't really make any sense. So, and I believe the fundamentals is the best entry, because it just shows what really the difference is, and then you just learn the basics that will allow you to move on with other courses, regardless of whether you're going to go to cave or to tech or just stay as a recreational.
Yeah. No, it's a pretty fantastic course. I'll drop one more question in from the live chat here and go back to the questions that have been sent in for a bit. So Carl Gosselin on Facebook asks, what is GUE's position on Seaspiracy?
I have not seen it yet.
Yeah,
I can't answer.
Afraid to say I'm guilty of that as well. So sorry, Carl, we'll have to come back to you on that one. Okay, thank you.
I didn't study for this test. I'm sorry.
No, it's a video that Olga, even our Olga, submitted videos to. It's about overfishing and fishing. But I have not seen it yet, so I would not like to state any opinions, because I heard different opinions, but I personally didn't see it yet, so it's on my watch list. So
coming soon. We might even review it on the channel. Who knows? Right, I'll go back to the sent in questions quickly. Dorota, this is another one for you. Why do I need to cut the toggle off my wing dump valve?
Okay, so it is there for a very specific norm, European norm reason, because it's required. But and if you have a big one, you should really take it off, because it creates a risk. A certain risk. If you have the very tiny small one, it might not create that risk, and it's really very hard for me to explain, but you need to visualize what I would mean. So the string that you have on the OPV, and if you have a very big something there, even so golf balls very long time ago, if you are really unlucky and if you put it under your harness and if you trap it there, if you inflate your wing, it will automatically be deflating it at the same time. And sometimes this is one of the reasons. So I have seen even a person that got this thing stuck in kind of in a wreck between pieces, and he was trying to move forward, but he couldn't, and he was deflating his wing at the same time because this thing got stuck. So basically we remove it because it creates a risk of the wing being automatically deflated because it gets stuck on your equipment. Either it's on your equipment under your harness, or it can go around the SPG, it can go around your stage clip, or it can get stuck into different kind of external places, and then you will have a problem that the wing is automatically deflating. And if you're not aware, it might create a potential of stress. Jarrod, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I've seen them get caught on pretty much everywhere you can imagine. So I've seen divers and stages clip into them sometimes. I've seen them get caught on rigs. I've seen them get wrapped around things. So I would just say general entanglement hazard, but also the auto dump problem is a pretty common one I've seen as well. So that would be the main reasons.
Yep.
Jarrod, next one's for you. The 7-liter cylinders on the GUE closed circuit rebreather is too much gas for a rebreather. Make of that what you will.
Is that a statement or a question? I think it is.
It seems like a statement.
It's kind of a statement, like quasi question. So I mean, I would have to use Dorota's famous answer for it depends. And you know, for us, the rebreather is really almost exclusively used as a technical tool. It's not to say we don't ever use them in shallow water, but we generally, you know, for me, if I'm doing a shallow dive, it's just so much quicker and easier and nicer to dive in open circuit. So, you know, normally what we'll need is to be sure we have ample minimum gas supply, and it just makes convenient sense to have that ample minimum gas supply that allows me to share with another buddy and reach the surface together, or to my first eco stop together. It makes more sense to store it in a more redundant fashion on my back rather than on multiple stages that I have to carry, particularly in a decompression oriented dive where you already have those stages. So really the size of the cylinders is driven by the type of dive you're doing and relating to the kind of minimum gas volumes that you need to carry in order to be safe and conservative and allow for ample gas sharing. So I'm not sure question or statement, but I would just say that it really just depends. And getting too much smaller than that really makes it pretty difficult to have any kind of reasonable minimum gas supply on your back.
Cool. We'll do one more sentence and then go back to the live questions. Dorota, this one's for you. It's a bit more like a statement again than a question, but fundamentals fundamentals is only for divers interested in becoming technical divers.
No, I mean, it's not. I can finish here and that's it.
Good answer.
But it's a misconception that also drags behind us for a long time, that fundamentals can be only done in twin set, in a dry suit, with a canister light, in a cord, which is not correct, because fundamentals is a course for any diver that would like to learn what GEO is about and learn the way we handle gear, how handle emergencies, how do we work with buoyancy and weighting and safety and so on. So it's for every single diver, and I have taught many courses I have taught quite few courses in single tank, and Nico is an example with in such a course, so definitely not. And every single diver can do that. You just need to be certified as an autonomous diver, which means an open water diver from different agency with 5 dives can do it. And I have done course like that as well. So I had a student that have been open water with 10 dives.
Yep. Mike, I can confirm you taught me fundamentals, and it hasn't pushed me into the realms of being a hardcore techie, although I'm very interested in doing that. So just from my personal experience, it's definitely a course for anyone of any level. It's fair. Yeah, it's a great, one of the best courses I've ever done. And I'm not just saying that because of present company.
I need to say that there are quite many nice questions coming up. I'm just trying to copy paste some of them, but really nice.
Yeah,
so
I've got them all here. We're actually going to go back to the live
There's
question.
no way. We'll either have to shorten our answers or skip a ton of questions. So.
We're going to have to do one or the other.
I have 2 that I like, so I can now.
Let me just get the ones.
We'll try to give shorter answers so we can cover a broader spectrum.
So there is one question that I really like, that has GEO considered collaborating with academic institutions to offer credits for its courses? We did, and we are.
Nice. And very motivated to continue to expand that. So for sure.
I've got one in here from Tom Keach. When do you think it's the right time to make the jump to tech?
Jarrod,
well, I guess that just really depends on where your diving's at. I mean, ultimately, I would say that you know, if you're starting to do dives near the recreational limit and you're enjoying those and feeling comfortable, and you have a reasonable number, you know, of those kinds of dives, a couple hundred at least in the general lifetime span, then I would say that it's a time for you to start moving in that direction. But I would do so when your diving calls for it and when it's interesting to you, and I'm not saying this diver is that way, but not because it's fashionable or because you see other people doing it. If you're interested and those are the kind of dives that are accessible to you, then I would say get started when you have that experience.
And then if I can add here, because there was a very similar question, it says that both of you are divers with great experience in the sport. Looking back, what would be some of the best advice you ever reviewed or received in your diving career? And it kind of fits to what Jarrod said, that get experience. I mean, the only thing that will make your dives really better, and then you will feel more comfortable. And if I would wish that I would have changed something, I would have done some courses, having more experience. And variety of environments, variety of dives. Just go out and dive, because training is not the only thing that will make you a better diver. The experience that you will have will make you. If you are challenged with conditions, if you are handling unexpected situations and situations that we cannot teach on courses because we cannot teach everything that possibly is humanly possible, just go out and dive in variety of different environments. Just don't get stuck with your favorite quarry on a lake and do hundreds of dives there, because it's not really getting experience. Experience is getting out and experimenting. And challenging yourself in a smart way, not kind of to the extent like, oof, that was a close call, but make challenging dives, because this will kind of increase your ability as a diver, and this would be the proper moment to go into tech as well, from my perspective.
Well said. We've got one here from Jens Bigat, or Bijar, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, Jens. With the advances in battery and LED technology and fantastic burn times, do we still need a light cord?
Not necessarily. So we don't require that as equipment in a mandatory way. We require that people demonstrate proficiency or capacity at managing a light cord or a corded canister, so that we can ensure that they do have that ability if they move on into dives in which they need more of that, more battery time or more burn in their canister. So at one point, it may well become completely irrelevant, because batteries are getting more and more performance oriented. The energy densities are climbing quickly, and we recognize that. Most of us are regularly using battery backed primary lights. So we don't have any issue with them. I would just encourage all divers to develop proficiency and capacity with the skill, so that you don't get caught one day where you need to use a canister light, or where you upgrade your diving and all of the muscle memory is completely learned without that skill, because there are some unique factors to managing the cord and the long hose.
Okay, cool. We'll do one more live question and then go back to the sent-in questions quickly. Don't you miss the old days when divers build part of their gear? I love the 80s and 90s, or I'm too old. Today's education has changed so much. I learned to breathe directly from the cylinder in Thucydides.
All right, Carlos, that's you're speaking my language now. So, you know, I mean, how I got into manufacturing equipment, because I'd spent a decade modifying equipment. So I remember well doing most of my dive gear shopping at the hardware store. I remember, you know, really modifying basically every piece of equipment that I had. I wouldn't say I miss it, because I still tinker all the time with equipment. I think most divers like to tinker to some extent. But I think it's also pretty convenient that there's a lot of well-designed pieces of equipment that I can get my hands on and dive with. So maybe we're both too old, but I would say it's a nice time now that we can dive with properly designed gear as well.
Cool. Okay, let's quickly go back to one of the sent-in ones. Jarrod, this is for you. Is the standard operating procedure GUE decompression strategy still in line with the latest insights research on the GF low? Isn't 20 too low, and is 30 or 50 not better at DCS prevention? And that's from Lucas Van Ryan.
Good question, and this is pretty topical and difficult to answer. Most likely, what you allude to seems to be mostly true for most people. I wrote a very lengthy series on our in-depth blog that I would encourage people to review, because it covers this topic in quite some detail. What I would say is, to summarize that lengthy series of articles, is that the jury is still out. It appears that higher gradients, so it's not stopping quite as deep, making your first extended stops shallower in the profile, probably is better for most people to off gas more efficiently. However, the research is a little bit mixed, and some of the most recent research that we're doing, actually in collaboration with Dan, is helping to highlight that for some divers, the deeper stops still seem to be more efficacious or more useful or more beneficial in terms of their surfacing Doppler scores. So it's not an easy question to answer, but I think that in most cases, almost everything in our lives is pretty individualistic. We have different tolerances to everything from sort of exercise and food to allergies. So it really seems very likely that we have a different response to the way bubbles form in our body. We probably form bubbles in different ways and are differentially susceptible to those bubbles. And so what I argue in that lengthy series on in-depth is that we really need to be considerate of the reality that forcing everyone into one form of decompression could be problematic and may be disadvantageous for some while being useful or advantageous to others. The whole team needs to do the same deco, so you're going to have to come to a consensus on that for yourselves. And we do allow individuals to set their own gradient factors. We encourage them to learn about gradient factors, and after the class, they are encouraged to set a gradient factor that is in keeping with their own belief system and education. But we still maintain pretty low gradient factors during training because we want really people to be very well under control from deeper water. Be sure that they're very stable and they come up with great care and precision. And in the end of the day, we're talking about a difference of a couple minutes of decompression in most profiles. So it's really more academic than realistic. So probably someday more people will migrate to shallower and shallower profiles. I think it's very reasonable to follow that. And if you study it and you're knowledgeable about it, I don't think it's a problem at all. In fact, I usually use higher gradients on some of my dives. But I would caution you not to just blindly follow either, because it does look like some people are better off with slower, deeper ascents. That information is coming out as we go. So sorry for the not easy answer, but it is a little bit variable.
Dorota, I've got one for you here. Is it needed to own equipment for a class, like a light with the cord for fundies or rebreather for a rebreather class?
So some of the courses, they require, I mean, none of the courses really require owning equipment. The courses, they require having the equipment during the course. But what I would suggest, or what I would answer, is that if you own the equipment, then you will be prone to use it after the course. And it's a little bit kind of a tricky answer, so because you can say, yeah, but you know, a light or a breather is expensive. But what's the point of making a rebreather class if you do not have the unit to dive it to get experience? So what's the point of having a corded light on the course and not having it as your own after the course if you cannot practice with it? And the whole point of the GUI training and the GUI kind of philosophy of how you can progress from course to course is to get experience with the equipment that you trained with. Because the standardization of equipment and the standardization of certain procedures is the core component of the training. So if you do not have that equipment, it's kind of how you can get proficient in using that equipment. Of course, you can say, I will always rent it, or I will borrow it from friends, or, you know, because I do not have the money to buy it at the moment. So for sure, for the course, you might have it rented, but I would really encourage to somehow get the equipment that you need for the dives that you trained for, because otherwise you will not be able to get the experience. So it's not necessary to have the equipment, to own it at the moment of making the course, but I see no reason why you should not own it after, because you need to practice with it. Because otherwise, if you use the corded light once on the fundamentals, there is no proficiency or not experience, gaining experience while using it, because you won't. It's the same with the rebreather, the same with the DPV, and so on. And of course, they are expensive pieces of equipment, and I never say to my parents how much money I spend on dive gear, but every sport or every activity has some budget involved with it.
I hope your parents are not still regulating your budget.
No. But you know, it will be kind of scary for them sometimes to hear how much money you can spend on diving gear.
Sure.
Right. Jarrod, I've got one more for you from the Sentin, and then we'll go back to some live quickly. So GUE is still a niche player in the diving community. All divers can greatly benefit from the additional layers of safety and the contribution to conservation. What are your ambitions? Do you want to gain market share? Is that even possible without making compromises? And that, once again, is from Lucas Van Ryan.
Thanks, Lucas. It's a great question. You know, what we focus on is trying to make sure that everyone who's interested in GUE has access to the training. We don't really speak in terms of market share or trying to grow the organization with any kind of targets to grow at a certain pace or to a certain size. We don't really have that as a frame of reference. What we're interested in is being sure that everybody has reasonable access and that we maintain quality as our differentiating factor. So we're not interested in growing at the sake of quality because it defeats the entire purpose really of the organization. At the same time, of course, if we can grow and maintain that same quality, which we are growing, we just grow slowly and steadily in different markets around the world, then we can bring these activities and this type of training and further enable exploration and conservation projects as well. So I think in the end, that's not our focus, the size, but our focus is the quality and the reach. But thanks, it's a good question.
Cool. Okay, let's bring up some of the live ones from Elias Kontz. Are there any restrictions from GUE divers for divers with diabetes?
So this would fall in most cases up to your instructor, and it would be relevant to medical clearance and depends on your level of diabetes, insulin dependency, and ends up being a medical related question, which would require a medical approval from a doctor in most cases.
Cool. And from Cheap Plef, I'm not even going to attempt to say that. Any advice for divers having a lot of trouble reaching their valves with the valve drill?
Yeah, a lot of advices.
Yeah, lots of advice. I mean, there's quite a lot of techniques. I don't know if it's practical for us to really talk about all of them, but there's just don't get carried away because we could.
No. I just want to say that I'm planning to shoot videos that should help divers to be able to reach those valves, starting from explaining how the shoulder works and then why people have problems reaching. Through a series of exercises, how to strengthen certain parts of your arm to make it easier, and how to reach, and how to increase flexibility, how to choose equipment, verifying if the dry suit is not too tight, if the wetsuit is not too tight, if the undergarment is not too tight, if the tanks are in a proper position. Just plenty of stuff.
It's a ton of stuff.
That's why it needs to be a separate series, which I am now drafting to record.
But as a brief summary, what I would say is if you can get your arm more this way, use a little bit of your head, and don't arch your back in the wrong direction. If you arch your back this way and don't push the tanks away, that helps a lot of people. But there's about another dozen things at least that we could recommend.
Coming soon.
Don't put your head down.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, no dropping the head, no rounding the back. Go ahead, Nico, next one.
Next one is from Stahlbeton. Why do many GUE divers use Santi dry suits today instead of DUI? Any thoughts on SF tech?
I don't actually know SF tech particularly well. I'm very familiar with DUI and Santi. Did you want to say something, Rhoda?
I mean, for me, SF tech is too stiff. I mean, it's a very heavy suit. This is from what I know, and that's it. And for me, it's just too heavy and too stiff.
And I think the Santi, Santi's building a great dry suit. They're very popular in Europe, where we also have a really strong GUE community. They've come on building very much in a targeted way for our market. And Tomek is a very active technical diver, so understands that market space and spends a lot of time diving as a technical diver, and is very responsive to people. So I think that's been a definite trend that divers respect that and see that, and a very active company coming out with great new products on a pretty regular basis. So I think that's been a big part of that trend. But I think there's a lot of good dry suits out there, and DUI still makes a great dry suit.
Okay, next one from Ninima, who is also kind enough to write in this exact same question, so I'll just bring it up here. Have you ever had a quote-unquote close call experience? If yes, where and why?
Yeah, quite a few in my early years. Because I was young and stupid and aggressive and motivated, and I didn't know what I didn't know. In fact, I would say several of my close calls were part of the things that inspired me to ultimately found GUE as an organization. Realizing that, when as a young, ambitious diver, there really wasn't anybody teaching the kinds of programs that would highlight the sorts of issues that I needed to know about, that would prepare me for the kinds of dives that I wanted to do, and lacking that preparation and that vehicle to learn, I just made it up on my own, and I got it wrong a few times. So I learned a lot from those early calls. I did most everything wrong at some point in my particularly my early diving career. Dorota would probably confirm I still do plenty of things wrong, but I think I do fewer things wrong, at least fewer serious things wrong, than I did when I started. So everything from cave mistakes and guideline mistakes to gas mistakes, and I learned like many people did, and I didn't learn with the kinds of procedures that enforced a safety mindset. So I think would be enough for now. I don't want to incriminate myself any further.
Yeah, I did have maybe not that many as Jarrod had, because I had less experience and not so much in caves, but I did have one in open water. It was too deep, too little gas, the wrong gas, limited experience, and thinking, oh, it's easy. So like exactly what Jarrod said. So, and this is what we emphasized before: get experience and get really comfortable with your skills, because environment is environment, physiology is physiology. A gas is narcotic, and we cannot adapt to it. And if it goes away, it goes away. There is no other source of it. So I would say I had like one that I would call really a close call, and some near misses, but the near misses are not counting.
Nico, I saw a couple of quick questions I'll just address really quick. One was about Deco Planner for Mac, which is something that we're getting pretty close on. I really can't, unfortunately, call a release date, but we are releasing something both for iPhones, Android phones, web interface, and PCs, of course, and a new version altogether. I'm hoping in the next couple months, but we've had a little bit of trouble aligning everything exactly the way we want and getting the features we want. And then another quick question I saw was about the ratio that the gradient factor used for original ratio deco, which is something I touched on briefly, but just to answer, we didn't really, because ratio deco started before Deco Planner. It started before, in the very beginning, when we were trying to figure out how to do decompression, we started to realize the ratio relationships. And then later it modeled 2085 as a reference point. Other ones you guys see? Nico, you're in charge of this show.
Yep. I've got a few here. Fernando Cora has sent one in. Besides the requirement of renewing credentials, how about requesting an annually or biannually fitness requirement for GUE divers? Interesting.
I would say ask that question one more time, and I will put it to the standards. But I will not be really very popular then. Probably.
So, I mean, I think what we really one of the challenges that we've come across is how to create and enforce strict and effective standards to encourage high diving capacity without becoming tremendously onerous to people in implementation. So in terms of administrative processing and checking the process and verifying, and it sounds easy when you start, but then when you start trying to do it on a global basis, it starts to get more complicated. But I think your question speaks to the heart of most of us. So as Dorota says, ask again, and it might end up in the standards next week.
We've got one here from Vlad Odessit. Can we get Tech 1 Plus course back?
If people took it, we probably would have offered it, but it was an incredibly unpopular class, one of our most unpopular classes. So it would be, it's difficult for an organization our size to maintain a significant amount of number of courses, and aesthetically, we don't also even really like it. Many of us resisted even more than like 6 courses. So for many of us already, it's quite a lot of courses. And I liked it. I finally came around to the idea, but then so few people took it that it really just didn't make sense to have it in our curriculum. So I'm sorry. I appreciate that you liked it, but unfortunately, there weren't enough people that it really made sense for us.
Nina Ma was a fan too.
Sorry.
I see here a nice question, Jarrod, you might like it. Metric is just better than Imperial. Will you consider only using metric?
I agree 100%, and I would be happy personally. I mean, I'm working in both systems all the time, and I prefer metric, having learned on the Imperial system. Unfortunately, it gets pretty difficult to force people in a country, namely the United States, to use a system that isn't used at all there. So metric is just really not used very much. It's used in the science community, but otherwise not. So it actually ends up creating a fair bit more complexity for divers trying to operate in those countries where imperial is the dominant standard. But I'm with you. I wish someday.
This is a nice one. This is a really nice one from Prisca Lim. And actually, we've got videos up on the channel now that show a little bit of what's going on with this. But can you both talk a bit about the NextGen scholarship?
Yeah, I mean, love to. We're both very excited about it, put a lot of energy into it, and just had a conference call with Annika, our current NextGen scholar, and trying to help her take the best advantage. Unfortunately, like for most people, the pandemic really threw our lives in a circle, upside down and backwards. And I think that we wanted to be sure that Annika got the best out of that scholarship. So given that she couldn't travel and couldn't train, we just decided to pause her scholarship and just now reactivated it. So she is now going to be able to start moving around and getting some training and taking advantage of the scholarship benefits. We will reopen for the next scholar early next year. I can't remember, in the first quarter, I think we decided, Dorota. And then we will select the winners before the next conference. So if I remember right, it's something around February that we open the next application of next year. And I think it runs through something like August or September. Dorota, correct my dates if I'm wrong.
I think it's correct.
Roughly that way, but we'll be announcing that in the coming month or two. And we're very committed to it and would like to see the program expand. And we really want to help a greater number of people get access to the training and the support network that our community provides.
Cool. Okay, we've got one here. Go for it, Dorota.
Yeah, I see here like questions related to GUI projects, where one of them have been if a non-GUI diver can be part of a GUI project, and if GUI is planning more diving projects in the future, and can we as GUI members work with GUI to develop projects for our global community? So to answer the second one, because it's kind of more straightforward. So is GUI planning more diving projects? Yes, in fact, we are developing tools for organizing, running projects, which I hope will be ready very soon. And the intent of that initiative is to teach people how to organize their own projects, how to make them most valuable, how to connect potentially with scientific institutions if the project is really kind of science-oriented. And definitely, yes, we would like to have much more projects, because this is one of the most attractive things that you can do as a diver, to be in a project and produce something of essence, so of meaning, that you might be doing things that actually can make a difference. And from my perspective, if you are not a GUI diver and if you would like to take part in a GUI project, it's kind of it's sometimes complicated, because if you are not GUI trained and you do not know the protocols and skills, your configuration of equipment is different. It will be really very hard to be part of a team that does something specific in the water, because you will be in a way speaking a different language. So it might be difficult to achieve certain goals, and it might be as well, depending on a project, it might be as well risky, because the emergency procedures might not be the same as well. Jarrod, do you have anything on this one? Non-GUI divers on GUI projects?
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to be open to everyone. It just really ultimately doesn't work. I mean, we really sincerely mean that. That's not just a talking point. We would love really to be all inclusive, but really the whole nature of the main kinds of projects we run makes it really just too complicated. Now, I mean, people are welcome, like beach cleanups and things that are not significant or technical expertise required, then that's great. We love to get everybody involved. But most of our more elaborate projects, it just becomes really not feasible.
I mean, for sure, we are collaborating with scientists who are not GUI divers, but and they are part of the project, but it's a little bit different collaboration, and it's not maybe being a diver on that project, but being a contributor that can help. But in water, it's really complicated from non-standardization perspective, or the potential for non-standardization.
For everyone in the comments, I just wanted to say a quick note. I wasn't expecting quite this many comments to come through, so I just thank you everyone for commenting. If for some reason we don't have time to come to your question, because we are on a limit, obviously, you will still be entered into the prize draw, irrespective of whether your question comes up or not. I am moderating everything, so don't worry. You will be entered into the draw, but we'll answer as many questions as we can with the time we've got left. Jarrod, I've got quite a nice one. Actually, both of you, I've got quite a nice one here from Jesper Larson. Which drill do you see as the most critical drill for a diver to know and to practice on each dive?
I want to reiterate Dorota's experience answer.
It depends.
We focus the experience answer, which is practice the diving part. But I would say that really it can be frustrating, but I think still the conventional S drill really ticks a lot of boxes when it's practical, because it just covers so many valuable skills. That I would say that standard S valve drill component is really very useful to getting good and efficient at. Dorota, do you have a different answer?
No, I was thinking about S drill as well. I would add something maybe very, very broad, and it is not a drill, it's a skill, it's buoyancy. Buoyancy, trim, and kicks.
Which is back to the diving experience. So plan lots of diving.
Yeah,
I think that's a good one. Plan for students to sign forms electronically. Actually, we are working on a DocuSign implementation, which should be out within the next month. So we are working on that one, and it's almost finished now. So the answer is yes to that. Nico, you got one?
Yep, quite a long one here from Xavier Maza. Sorry about removing you, Dodo. What can be done to remove the separation of recreation and technical diving? I think it should be a continuum. To my understanding, there is only one way to dive, the safest and following the most advanced and reliable procedures, and that can evolve. Do you think there should be a recreational way versus a technical way?
I would say that's I would say no. I never did really see a lot of sense in it personally. And I think if you look at our programs, you don't really see an artificial break. I would say that we start with the very same procedures from the very beginning. That's really the whole point in our paradigm. The configuration is almost identical. The responses are almost identical. They're all built organically and progressively through time. And what we ask anyone to do differs really only by the skill and the performance standard that we request from them, but not really fundamentally throughout the spectrum. And in fact, a lot of our open water divers look like technical divers by many people's perspective, but I would say that there isn't really this kind of artificial distinction.
And I think very often people are thinking about technical diving only because there is a backplate wing and a long hose.
Yeah.
And they kind of associate it, it's a technical diving equipment, which is not, because we train recreational divers in that equipment. So I might not, there are even countries that we train beginner divers in double tanks and drysuits because of the environment and the requirements. So I agree with Jarrod that it should be, there is no division really. But I think it's the perception of many that recreational divers are, I don't know, kind of two different types of people, recreational, technical, but everybody needs to start somewhere. So everybody starts as a beginner.
Yep, 100%. Got a nice one here from C Hart. What is GUE's plan on forwarding the progression with communities in the future? Also, how can existing communities best support that mission while also increasing membership?
That's good. I actually I just had a couple-hour conversation before this one, before this broadcast, on pretty much exactly that topic. We're coming out with a number of initiatives in the coming months organized around our 10-year focus. So we've got a Mission 2030 development plan that we've been building, which is very heavily community focused. And we also have a new conservation initiative that we're developing, which is kind of structurally designed to help facilitate project development and coordination. And so both of these initiatives are really being developed very much along the lines of this question, designed to help our communities develop the tools necessary to build projects and build their communities, and then help them to get more efficient and effective at interacting between them and building up their interaction and their capacity. We're even also coming out with a community portal that'll be dedicated for this purpose as well. So I think by the end of the year, the landscape will look fairly different in terms of what's accessible and what tools we have available to communities.
We have a very active community liaison, I would say. Marcus Rose is an instructor from UK who is really very actively helping with developing those projects. So if there is anybody who would like to learn more or would like to get involved, you can always contact him or us, and then we will put you in touch with Marcus.
Yep. Really nice question from someone who's not a GUE diver here, which I think you'll both like. I've been a PADI rescue diver for a while because the training was paid for. I'm ready to move on and don't really want to go down the PADI dive master route. What would you guys recommend? Fundies then?
I would say almost always. I mean, Fundamentals is such a great program for all sorts of divers and all sorts of skill levels. I mean, we get Trimix instructor trainers who comment on the how much they've enjoyed that program, all the way through to open water divers. It's a great way to see what we offer and make your own decision about the level of distinctiveness that we provide as an organization. So I think you will be very happy. It's pretty widely available. It's one of our most accessible programs as well. So all around, I think that's your best bet and would give you a good view into what we're trying to do.
We have nice questions. There's so many of them.
Yeah.
So there is one that we have an answer. Have you looked at combining different certifications into one certificate to reduce the number of cards we have to carry? We have been looking at electronic certificates, and then we are considering having them available online. So reducing amount of plastic and reducing amount of cards that you need to carry. So it's one of the things that we are looking at, in fact.
I've got one here that I'd really be interested to know what you both think on. Again, from Carl Gosselin. Any list of recommended GUE liveaboards? A GUE travel helper on the website, perhaps?
Well, I mean, I think we both really enjoy Red Sea Explorers and Egypt. We've both spent a lot of time on that with Faisal and that operation, and they're very GUE friendly. Maybe you have some other recommendations, Dorota, but I do know that is one focus we're building into the GUE community app so that our community who has a broader level of experience can recommend and communicate with one another in that regard. I don't have any that I've been on enough times to recommend. I've been on a few different ones over the years, but nothing I could say beyond the Red Sea Explorers.
What I would add to that is that this is something you need to stay tuned to the channel for, guys. We are in the process. You've seen two of them already with our little video about the dive shop in Mexico. We've just done the one in Bonaire recently, and we are going to keep doing this. So if you stay tuned to the YouTube channel, you will intermittently see videos that highlight some of the dive centers that we do use a lot. So do stay tuned to the channel for that. Or is there something you wanted to ask? Was there a question to bring up?
No, I mean, I'm just reading the questions. There are quite many nice questions. I don't know how we can answer all of them.
We might almost need to curate the questions and do a bonus video at some stage later because there's a lot of questions coming through here. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in and putting these questions out. It's great to see.
There were a couple of questions about types of rebreather, and I think I would just say as a general answer that we really strive to do the things we do as well as we can within our capacity. And so we've really avoided trying to chase a lot of different rebreather designs because we want to be sure that we can feel like we're reasonable experts in whatever we choose to dive and to promote and teach and maintain the currency of those materials at a very high standard. And doing that with multiple different rebreathers just isn't really practical. So, we manage within a small curated set of rebreathers. We do look at others. I think there are many great rebreathers out there, and the fact that we're not using them isn't really at all a judgment against them. One question asked about a KISS, which is a great rebreather that I had a couple years of experience on. It's close enough to the JJ that we strongly considered it because it wouldn't require nearly as much difference in the development path. But I think just broadly speaking, we're just trying to focus and keep our instructors and ourselves as an organization at a very high level in terms of our knowledge in that regard. We've
got one come through here from Jacob Mayer. Jacob, who's actually very, very proficient underwater photographer who's going to be doing some work very closely with me on GUE TV. So thanks for sending this in, Jacob. Why is the minimum age for the scholarship 21, since it is aimed towards younger divers?
It's a little bit less complicated from a legal, practical, and flexibility standpoint. We could theoretically probably go to 18, but then in some areas we have, they're allowing, I think 18 to 21 was the range, and we really just wanted to select somebody that was a little bit further into finished with their academic career and a little bit more mobile and ready to travel. Any younger than 18 gets really complicated, and when you're an old guy, then 21 is pretty young. So I think we certainly could, and we did discuss having other versions of the scholarship in the coming years, adding some new scholars in different parts of the country, and that has also been one of the points we discussed, whether we would want to try to come out with some younger people. So I'll consider that a vote for younger scholars, and we'll consider that in the future as well.
Nice. We've got at most about 5 minutes left on the stream, guys, so I'm just going to pick a few nice questions here. We've got one from Justin, which I think shows a nice desire for people to help us grow the community, which I love. Do you have any suggestions on growing a community in a very remote area such as South Africa without a local instructor?
Yeah, I would say we'll try to get one to you. We'll try to help get one to you, and maybe you can become the beginning point of that instructional community. So that's normally how it happens, is we try to help coordinate bringing an instructor for training and then developing the community outward from there, finding someone who will ultimately become an instructor and help grow it that way. We'd be happy to work with you to try to facilitate that process.
And there's another question that is as well related to it from Double Chines. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but follow up. Is there a resource or guide for how to start a GUE-based organization? I understand that it's a community within a geographical area that doesn't currently have one. So this is as well coming back to the what we are building with Marcus and then within the organization about communities. So we would like to know who is out there, who is needing help, what type of help is needed. And then we are building guides and we are building guidelines for communities and how they can get engaged. So how you can, like Jarrod said, you need to start with somebody who is trained, and then you are building a team of 3, and then it might be a team of 6 and 9 divers, and then maybe somebody becomes an instructor, and then you can grow it organically. But we are preparing, and I think this will give a very nice push for Marcus to keep on moving with the development on the community part of his work, that we can create more guidelines for communities. So it is coming up.
I'll ask one more question that was sent in, because I'm sure it's one that people might be very interested to hear you answer. This is from Gunet. What's the plan for bringing young divers into the community? Would GUE consider training that would put young people into diving, teaching them good practice from the get-go before they are sucked in by the PADI machine?
Very much so. That's what we're trying to do. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. Dorota herself has put a lot of energy into our open water program. Several of us had over several years now, continuing to refine it. Dorota, you want to speak about that?
Yeah, I mean, we already have. I mean, I do have, my personal opinion is that there is a certain limit of age of kids that is no, from my perspective, there is not really a good way of teaching. They can enjoy the underwater, they can enjoy things, but training them and making them independent divers is very hard. Because I have been teaching kids, you know, like 8 and 10, 12 years old, and some of them, they are really very good and some of them not. So I'm not really advocating for teaching young kids. For me, 12 plus, if the 12-year-old is really kind of, you know, strong, and then he is very well, has good waterman skills and has a very good understanding of quite complex concept like decompression and gas management. It's really complex. So I always encourage parents that want to have kids trained to better to get them into water, doing snorkeling, free diving, getting maybe some experience on scuba, but waiting until they are 12 at the youngest, preferably even 13, 14. And our courses, they have a limit of 14 years old age. So you can do Rec 1 or supervised diver being 14.
Cool.
I
Jarrod,
don't know if we can leave all these questions. It's killing me.
yeah, no, it's
I mean,
crazy.
there is one very funny.
A lot of
RGV
great
divers,
questions.
no, RGV divers taught to always stay horizontal no matter the topography of the circumstances.
that's
No,
what I was
they are
gonna
not
share.
taught that.
They are not. And since the beginning, I've been absolutely emphasizing that. Got to change for the topography. It's fine to come out of trim anytime that you need to, as long as you do it on purpose. You're not destroying the environment or damaging the coral.
No.
So no problems at all. I'm upside down and vertical whenever I feel like it, as long as it doesn't cause an issue.
We've got a nice rebreather here question, Jarrod, which I guess is going to be a nice one for you to answer. And then I guess we're going to have to wrap it up. But
And we have one question in Greek, but this I cannot answer.
I don't, Demetrius, I need you here, mate. So this is from Geese Dornbush. Rebreathers become more mainstream and their technology improved over time. Currently, the JJ is GUE's way to go. What about considering other rebreathers that, for example, include, besides oxygen measurement, a helium measurement?
Yeah, well, I already answered this question, actually. So this is what I had spoken about earlier when I talked about rebreathers, and I talked about why we focus on a particular kind of rebreather, just based on the expertise component. So I don't think we need to re-answer that one. But rechargeable batteries, I might answer in its place. The question asking why we still promote disposable for our backup lights. And this can be a longer answer, but I'll make it brief. And really, it isn't about the quality of the rechargeable battery. It's about the fact that rechargeable batteries degrade their charge over time. Disposable batteries hold their charge very well over the longer period of time, based on the shelf life of the battery. So you're getting very predictable life for a long period. You shouldn't be using your backup light ever, so I don't really see why you're going through backup lights. No, really, we shouldn't be. And I think if you rarely change them just based on the shelf life, or carry one, if you use a light from time to time, carry one with a rechargeable, but keep your backup lights in disposable battery. That's probably the best bet for reducing waste while also being safe.
Cool. I think we need to cut it there, don't we?
It's quite
probably, but this is you guys have been great. I really appreciate all the wonderful questions, your enthusiasm, the commentary. I think we should do it again, Nico. I mean, if people are interested, we're always happy to talk to everyone, and we're grateful for all of you for following us along and enjoying the channel and asking great questions. So I'm happy to do this on a regular basis if it's interesting to our community.
Definitely. And then, Nico, we will have those questions somewhere else.
Say again?
The questions that we have here, they will not disappear into oblivion.
No. I'll have access to all the questions. So just to re-emphasize, as I said, guys, once again, if we haven't got to your question, we apologize. We weren't counting on this many people actually dropping questions in. So thank you for the interaction. We are going to put everyone who's answered, everyone who sent in a question, rather, we're going to put all your names in a hat. 10 of you will be drawn at random. I see all the tickets to Scuba Digital have gone, so that's great. I hope you guys enjoy those tickets. But yeah, stay tuned to the YouTube channel to see who the winners are. And we will do these live streams more regularly. So I'll put a poll out and ask you guys, our fans on YouTube and on Facebook, how often you want to see Dorota and Jarrod doing these live streams. Once a month, once a quarter, we'll see. But yeah, that's it really from me.
Yep, and for me, thanks all. I think it's been great. I really love the questions. It's been great chatting with everyone.
It's been great, guys. Please like the video, hit the subscribe button, and please share. Let everyone know about our YouTube channel, about our Facebook pages, and let other divers who you may know who may not be GUE divers yet, just tell them about us. Spread the word. It's a beautiful thing, word of mouth. But thanks from everyone here at GUE, and we will see you on the channel very soon. Jarrod, Dorota, thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much. Much appreciated.